The Dreamweaver's Lullaby. Once, in a quiet village, nestled between rolling lavender hills and a whispering silver river, there lived a weaver named Elara. But Elara was no ordinary weaver. Her loom did not spin wool or silk, but dreams. Each evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and the first stars blinked awake, Elara would sit by her enchanted loom, her fingers dancing over threads of moonlight and strands of shadow. With every pass of her shuttle, she wove dreams for the villagers, gentle dreams of floating on clouds, adventurous dreams of sailing on starlit seas, and cozy dreams of warm hearths and soft blankets. One night, a weary traveller named Kale stumbled into the village. His eyes were heavy with exhaustion, his heart burdened by years of restless wandering. The villagers, knowing Elara's gift, brought him to her cottage. "Can you weave me a dream?" Kale asked, his voice rough with fatigue. "I haven't slept deeply in years." Elara studied him, the lines of worry on his brow, the way his hands trembled slightly. "I can," she said softly, "but the deepest dreams require a thread of your own memories." Kale hesitated, then nodded. Elara began her work. She spun threads of silver for peace, gold for warmth, and deep blue for tranquility. Then, with Kale's whispered memories, of laughter with old friends, of quiet sunrises in forgotten lands, she wove them into the tapestry. That night, Kale lay down on the soft bed in Elara's guest room. As soon as he closed his eyes, the dream took him. He stood in a vast meadow, under a sky streaked with twilight. A gentle breeze carried the scent of blooming jasmine. In the distance, a figure approached, a younger version of himself, unburdened and smiling. They walked together along a path lined with fireflies, speaking without words, until Kale felt a weight lift from his chest. When dawn came, Kale awoke with tears on his cheeks. But for the first time in years, he felt rested. "You gave me back something I thought I'd lost," he told Elara. She smiled. "Sleep is the mender of all things. My loom only helps it along." Kale stayed in the village, learning Elara's craft, and from then on, no soul who came to them left without the gift of sweet, deep dreams. As the seasons turned, Kale became Elara's apprentice, learning the delicate art of weaving dreams. He discovered that each thread had its own song. Some hummed with joy, others whispered of sorrow, and a few even carried the faintest echoes of forgotten lullabies. One evening, as the first frost of winter glazed the village in crystal silence, a child named Elara came to Elara's cottage. Her small hands clutched a tattered blanket, and her eyes were wide with fear. "I keep having bad dreams," she confessed in a voice barely louder than the rustling leaves. "Monsters in the shadows, storms that never end." Elara knelt before her, brushing a curl from the girl's forehead. "Ah, but even the darkest dreams can be unraveled and rewoven," she said gently. She glanced at Kale. "Shall we show her?" Kale nodded, fetching a spindle of shimmering indigo thread, the kind spun from courage. Together they worked. Elara wove a tapestry of a moonlit forest, where fireflies danced like tiny guardians. Kale added a thread of his own, a memory of facing down a pack of wolves in the mountains, only to realize they were lonely, not vicious. The moment the last knot was tied, the fabric shimmered like water under starlight. "Place this under your pillow," Elara told Elara. "The monsters may come, but you'll see them differently now." That night, Leora dreamed of the forest. When the shadowy creatures emerged, they weren't snarling beasts. They were lost, their edges frayed like old yarn. She reached out, and one by one, they softened into mist, leaving only the scent of rain behind. Word of Elara and Kale's gifts spread beyond the village. Soon, travelers from distant lands arrived. Sleepless nights, heartbroken poets, even a king who had forgotten how to dream at all. Each received a tapestry woven just for them, stitched with the very memories they needed most. But one night, a figure cloaked in swirling grey mist stood at Elara's door. No face could be seen beneath the hood, only a voice, like a sighing wind. "I have walked 1,000 nights without rest," it murmured. "Weave me a dream, or unravel me entirely." Elara's hands stilled. This was no ordinary dreamer. This was a sleepless one, a soul who had wandered so long in wakefulness that it had begun to fade. Kale's breath caught. "What do we do?" Elara closed her eyes, listening to the hum of her loom. Then, with resolve, she reached not for her threads, but for a pair of silver shears. "Some dreams are not meant to be woven," she said. "Some are meant to be cut free." With one swift motion, she snipped the air itself. The figure gasped as threads of exhaustion, regret, and endless wandering unraveled from its form, dissolving like smoke. Beneath the tattered cloak stood a man, no longer a spectre, but flesh and blood, his eyes clear for the first time in centuries. "Jesus," he rasped, touching his own face in wonder. Elara smiled. "No, I gave you back to yourself." As the man stumbled into the village, blinking at the sunrise like a newborn, Kale turned to Elara. "How did you know?" She ran a hand over her loom, now glowing faintly with dawn's light. "Dreams are not just stories we tell ourselves to sleep. They are bridges between what we fear and what we remember, between what we've lost and what we might become." From then on, the villagers no longer spoke of Elara as just a weaver. She was the keeper of the threshold, the one who could mend even the most fractured souls. And Kale? He became the guardian of the unwoven, the one who ensured no dream, no matter how dark, was ever truly lost. Years passed, and the village flourished under the gentle magic of Elara's dream weaving. But as the world beyond the lavender hills grew louder, filled with clattering machines and sleepless cities, fewer travelers came seeking solace in woven dreams. The villagers whispered that the world was forgetting how to sleep. Then, one autumn evening, the loom fell silent. Elara's fingers, usually so sure, hovered over the threads as if they had turned to smoke. The moonlight strands slipped through her grasp, and the shadow threads dissolved before she could tie them into place. Kale found her sitting in the empty cottage, her face pale. "What's wrong?" She turned to him, her voice barely a whisper. "The world is drowning in wakefulness. There's too much noise, too much light. The dreams, they won't hold anymore." That night, for the first time in decades, the villagers dreamed nothing at all. An elder in the village, a woman with silver-streaked hair and eyes like cracked amber, told them of an old legend, the first dreamer, the one who had woven the very first lullaby of the world. "They say he sleeps at the heart of the obsidian mountains," she murmured. "Find him, and perhaps the dreams can be mended." So Elara and Kale set out, carrying only a small bundle of the last remaining dream threads and a lantern filled with captured starlight. Their journey took them through the forest of whispering names, where the trees murmured the identities of every dreamer who had ever been lost to sleeplessness, the sea of half-remembered songs, where ghostly voices hummed melodies that tugged at the heart, but vanished if listened to too closely. The bridge of yawning shadows, which stretched thin as a spider's web, over an abyss where forgotten nightmares pooled like ink. Finally, they reached the Obsidian Mountains, a jagged range of black stone that swallowed all sound. At its peak stood a door carved with a single word: sleep. The door opened without a sound. Inside, a figure lay on a bed of woven twilight, their face shifting like sand in an hourglass, sometimes young, sometimes ancient, sometimes not human at all. Elara knelt beside them. The world is forgetting how to dream. We need your help. The first dreamer's eyes opened. Two pools of endless night. I have slept since the first stars were young, they murmured. But dreams are not mine to give. They belong to the dreamers. They pressed a hand to Elara's forehead, and suddenly she remembered. Not a memory, but something deeper. The hush before creation, the breath between thoughts, the quiet that had existed before the first dream was ever spun. When she opened her eyes, she was holding a new thread, one spun, not from moonlight or shadow, but from the silence itself. The weaving of the last lullaby. Elara and Kael returned to the village just as the last embers of the hearths were fading. Without a word, she sat at her loom and began to weave. This time, she did not weave a dream for one person, but for the world itself. Kael added threads of his own, stolen breaths between heartbeats, the pause between wind and still air, the moment when a child's eyelids grow heavy but do not yet close. As the tapestry grew, the villagers gathered, their weary eyes widening. One by one, they yawned. And then the world sighed. Somewhere, a city's neon lights flickered and dimmed. A child's restless fingers stilled against their blanket. A night bird's call hung suspended in the air. For the first time in centuries, the universe paused. And in that pause, dreams returned. The last thread. Elara's hands finally stilled. The tapestry before her shimmered, then dissolved into the air like mist at dawn. Kael touched her shoulder. Did it work? She smiled, her own eyelids drooping. Listen. Outside, the wind carried the sound of 1,000 slow, even breaths. The world was dreaming again.